Good evening and welcome to Powerbrief on this day, the 18th day of the month of February, the year 2021. And tonight we take another shift in the political and governance arena where we take a break and look into economic matters. Tonight we are joined by Honorable Jeremiah Kioni, who is a member of Parliament for Ndaragwa constituency and is also the chairman of the Constitutional Implementation and Oversight Committee in the National Assembly. Edgar Kosgei, a political and a policy analyst, is also with us on the show tonight, joined by Mr. John Kamau, who is a politician and an economist. Join us in this conversation as we let you to understand what's happening in the Kenya's economy, the remedies that the country, the president and the Treasury Ministry are trying to put in place. Remember, this conversation is also live on our Facebook page, KAK TV Kenya. Our YouTube channel is KAK TV Kenya. Our SMS number is 22167. Keep it here till the end. Mheshimiwa, Mr. Edgar and Mr. John, welcome to Powerbrief tonight. And before we go far, I would like to give Mheshimiwa just a few seconds. In the course of this week, we lost one member of parliament for Bonchari, that is Honorable Oro Oyoka. And also one of our colleagues here hails from that constituency, and I think I'll be inhuman not to give Mheshimiwa an opportunity to speak to the people of Bonchari who are actually watching Powerbrief tonight.
Thank you so much for that, and good evening, viewers. For that opportunity to convey my condolences and those of the people of Ndaragwa to the good people of Bonchari. The late member, Honorable John Oyako, I think that's what it was a sound of reason. He was a voice of reason within Parliament. He is one who would quickly, even if it's in the informal discussions, call people to order and perhaps draw them to parallels that would be useful in the discussions. And it is really a big blow to us as members of Parliament, and also to, certainly without doubt, the members, the good people of Bonchari. But let me also say that in the same week we also lost Senator Yusuf Hanji, an elder within Parliament, a member of the Senate. I had worked with him during 10th Parliament. He was a PC in our used to be Central Province, DC in Nyandarua County. Then it was Nyandarua District. And really a personality, an individual who believed in the good of the country, as opposed to being just an elder from the Somali community. He was always looking for the good of that can put Kenya together. And also another useful person who has dedicated his life to serving this country, the late Nyachai. We lost them in quick succession, and certainly a time to reflect as Kenyans. I said it on the floor of the House, but let me just say it here. What was amazing is that Mheshimiwa Nyachai passed on almost 14 days ago, was buried the same day with Yusuf Haji. Yusuf Haji passed on at 5:30 and was buried the same day with Nyachai, who had passed on almost 14 days earlier. According to the family members of Yusuf Hanji, the total budget for disposing of the remains of Senator Yusuf Hanji was about 10,000 thereabout. You can imagine the amount of money that Nyachai went away with. And then think of the checkered career that Yusuf Haj had. And I was asking members of Parliament, who in Parliament can equal the career that Yusuf had? And look at the way he was put off in such humbleness. And yet there we will be in Parliament. Some of us cannot even be buried until the presidential diary is available, so that the president shows up. Yusuf, a very close friend of the president, and they couldn't even wait for the president to get there. They were almost finishing the function before he flew from Kisii, but they gave it another 1 or 2 hours so that he could at least be in the home. But I think while that's the Muslim culture, or is the way, and we have our Christian way, some of the things we practice early day they made us, I went through and wondered, why is it that we would keep a body in a home for that long? Really, something for us to reflect on.
That's actually, we shall find time and maybe discuss whether we have to shift from what we are doing, especially you've mentioned our religion, that is Christianity, which I also subscribe to. Mr. John Kamau, coming back to you and the rest of the team tonight. Now, the BBI temperatures. As I called Edgar in the morning, his voice was a bit shaky and weak. But that one from Mheshimiwa, I could hear some strength in it, because these two people hold a different opinion on BBI. And since things are not going very well on
9 goals
side,
out of 1 goal.
So Mr. John Kamau, what's happening at the national, the county assemblies after the car grants were actually given to them, and you see like it is passing. Do you think it is actually been influenced by the car grants, or is something, it is good and it has remained to be good?
I think for specific members of parliament and for also the county assembly, there is a feeling there is some goodies in the document, and it's not a new song. This is just answers that we've been having all along. These are issues we've been talking about all along. It's only that we have them in a compact document. But if you talk of youth, we have policies. We don't have shortcoming when it comes to policies, but we have shortcomings when it comes to implementation of those policies. So the policies that we've now consolidated into what we are calling BBI are issues we've been talking about and having them all along, only that they're in one document. I won't take side say it's good or bad, but I feel there is a bit of it which is good, and a bit of it that needs to be worked on for the document to be totally accepted. Because the issue is there is the handshake and BBI. We've taken both of them to mean the same, which is very different. Because BBI is here to stay with us. It's not about the handshake. It's actually improving what handshake intended to have, but now the issue is we've politicized it, the entire document, and how we came into handshake and BBI was, I would say, in a way so wrong, especially from the president. He did not make even the so-called tanga to get a chance to own the entire process, because they sat together without involving either of their members. Of course, they come from they subscribe to political parties, and they are members to each of the political party. But the president and Right Honorable Raila Odinga, they sat together without involving the rest. Then when they had sat and discussed and agreed, that's when they involved them. So there was that thing they felt they didn't own the document. That is the handshake
or the BBI process, because if it's the BBI process, the president was categorical, and you remember at the Bomas of Kenya, when he was explaining actually what he did, how he involved the deputy president to an extent that deputy president akaenda nyuma yake alikuwa anamshika kidogo. I think you remember what was happening at the Bomas of Kenya. So according to you, is it the handshake or the BBI process that the Tanga crew was not involved?
I think the BBI is as a result of the handshake. So from the word go, they felt they were not part of it. Actually, the document is good, and especially even for deputy president, because you feel even if it was we were to take it politically, the big question for deputy president, if the BBI doesn't pass, will be the choice of the deputy leader that he will take. Because if he takes it from the Mount Kenya region, the other 40 communities will feel, is it only them who can rule us? And then the Mount Kenya community, if he chooses from another tribe, some of them will feel, from another region, they will feel as if we cannot be out of government, as they say. So, but with BBI, there is a bigger structure where he can have leaders from several regions, also in the executive part of the government. So it's actually easing up for him. It's actually becoming better for him as compared to him and a deputy president. But I would say the document, for me, has its shortcoming, but also has its goodies.
Many thanks. Mr. Kosgei, things seem not to be going very well on your side, especially after Trans Nzoia County, which is a neighbor to a leader or the person who is perceived to be against this process, that is Deputy President William Ruto. What is it that is not happening? Because the so-called Rift Valley is voting otherwise, giving Honorable Jeremiah Kioni an early Christmas. No, we were just in Christmas the other day.
We can only pretend not to be happy.
Mushmu is so happy today. So happy today. In fact, those 10 counties, are 10 counties
11
that have passed?
now.
11 right
11
now
so
that
far.
have passed,
11,
yes.
yeah.
Now, Omuse, there are a few things that we have to look at here. If it was a good document, then we will not have to bribe people. Then we will not have to tell the counties so that you can pass, we can give you 1.4 million. It's even no longer 2 million. And I think the MCAs did not see the KRA coming because it is being taxed right now at 30%. The tax money is coming. So you don't need to give out goodies for a document to be passed. Number two, the members, if you have a mistake, like if you are a state official and you have stolen some money, then it is a chance for you to support the BBI so that you can be forgiven and you can be sanitized. Mheshimiwa is laughing. You can be sanitized. And when you go to Baba, Baba will tell you Mosho Moja. After that, you're done. Support the BBI and you will survive. Number three, opposing any bill, any part of BBI will cost you your job or your security or your security detail or anything. It is a government that is out to victimize the people who are not in support of the document. If you have your own reservations and stuff, government machinery is being used to sell this document. Every person is scared. And I'm telling you, President Kenyatta will pass this document. Whether you like it or not, he will pass it, whether it rains or whether the sunshine comes. Let me answer you about the deputy president. I am not his spokesperson, but we have engaged in a few matters with the deputy president. One, he has not objected the document in totality. He has had issues that have been corrected, as we all know in this country. The only thing that he is asking from the document is one thing: how to frame the whole question, that issues have to be separated and that we have to be given a chance to judge each and every issue. In each and every issue we have to be given a chance, including the Prime Minister's post, where we will say no.
Before I lose you, Mr. Edgar,
Yes.
you remember the sentiments that have been coming from the head of state and also Raila, who is a major proponent in this process. They talked of time that was meant to either add or subtract what the deputy president is trying to propose actually elapsed. So at this time, if he's talking of adding more, then it's some sort of, it appears like he's opposing.
We all made the timelines that are there, and we can all agree and come to the table and say, this is how we are going to go. We are human, Omuse. We are human. And the document is human, and it was made by humans. This is building bridges amongst us. And this one has to be a consensus. You have to listen to me, and to listen to you, and to listen to everyone. So we can still amend. The time frame was drawn by Right Honorable Raila Odinga and Uhuru Kenyatta. It was drawn by them. And we can bring on board people like us or people like the other people who are dissenting on the timelines, on correction. It can still be done.
Thank you, Mr. Edgar. Mheshimiwa, two things from you before we now get to the main topic of the night. One, must KRA tax everything, including a grant? Was your 7 million taxed when you first entered Parliament, and even recently when you made it for the second time in the National Assembly? And then another thing, do you believe that actually coercion is playing in this game, as Edgar and other anti-BBI proponents are actually trying to say that yes, they are passing it, lakini ni kwa sababu ya vitisho na madhambi ambazo wenda wamefanya, crime activities and all that?
One of the things is that I need to take the opportunity to congratulate those 11 counties that have given a nod to the BBI document. And I encourage the many others that are still going through the loops.
How many are you targeting?
So we
47 or?
Well, we were looking at 35, but we are supposed to have 24. But we are likely to get the 35, and we will be happy to get 35. If we can get more, the merrier.
Yeah.
And I think it is good to appreciate the work that has been done by the various county assemblies and the members of the county assemblies. Because in the passing of this document, we are also getting to come up with a procedure of how to process. Some of these things are done through practice, and we are running a lot also from the practices that we are doing. I think the other important thing to say is that the document that we have has the contributions from every Kenyan. We had 2 whole year of the BBI team, the commission, moving around the country and collecting views from Kenyans from every part of this country. That is also another public participation. The composition of the 9, I don't know how many commissioners did we have, but the composition of the commissioners was also such that the Prime Minister, the Deputy President, and the President had commissioners in that team. And the team for the Deputy President was led by Major General Say, the retired, a person of eminence studying in this country, and I'm sitting from the backyard of the DP county. So it is a document that has been developed when involving everybody. And again, let me say this without doubt, the DP chose. He has qualified his statements by saying he's not the spokesman, so he cannot contradict me on this. But the DP deliberately chose to oppose the BBI. There's nothing like blowing code and hot, and you cannot. It's either you are for it or against it, and this is a case of individuals who are against it but are looking for how can they salvage their earlier anti-BBI position by saying there are some good and bad.
So you're either
in it or no, because there is nothing like saying we are either going to pass it or defeat it. So you cannot be in between there. And when you cast in a form of doubt, you are likely to influence people in the opposite direction. I want to say that it is a good document, as it is. It is not the end of looking at the Constitution of 2010 and the things we need to do. There will be another BBI 2, there will be a BBI 3, and that will continue. The question that will be there is, who is it that is going to read the coming BBIs? I call them BBIs because anytime you want to do a constitutional amendment, you must reach out, you must negotiate. It cannot be your way. It cannot be your own way. This is a document that is for us all, and you must buy, and that's why we talk over 2/3 majority. So that I'm not need to say this because it is important. It's a question of whether the next constitutional amendment will be done by Parliament or through popular initiative. I believe the tidier way, the cheaper way to manage that process, because it's not a thing that you must throw in politics, is Parliament to become proactive more than they are today, and look at the areas of the Constitution that really requires improvement, filling in some of the areas. Some of the articles are already done, they need to be listed. That is the work of Parliament, and that's why we are elected into Parliament. I am a little disappointed with the current Parliament, just like I was with the previous one, because this is one aspect, one mandate that they have, that they don't seem to have read it well. It's contained under Article 94 and Article 95. Our work is to protect. It is actually Parliament that was given that constitutional mandate, not the executive, not the judiciary. Of course, even the other institutions have a role to play. But we are where we are, and this is a good document. The things that are contained in it will benefit the young people, and it will benefit this country. It would help us perhaps to discuss the issues that you want us to discuss of IMF in a big way, and it stabilizes this country in a big way. So I want to encourage the young people. I have heard them talk about all the things they have said, and they are all right. But government machinery, you see, when you look for votes to run a country, you are given the mandate by Kenyans to run the country. The institution that you will use to run the country with the agenda that was passed by Kenyans is the government. You cannot say that the government machinery cannot be neutral from the person who won the mandate to run the country. For the time that person is in office, the only mandate, the only policy that they have to do is the one that comes with the winning party. This is something that we are not, it seems not to, once the civil service is there, and the head of the civil service is there, but the executive, the president, is voted for, so that then he can come with, these are the things I promised Kenyans, deliver on them. The government machinery must deliver on that. BBI is not a political project. It is part of what we need as a country. I want to encourage all chiefs.
BBI is compared to a situation where you go home, find your son or your daughter with a fever, and then unasema hii dawa lazima utameza for your own good. Are you trying to bring that?
No, I don't use such language, and I know better than using such language. We talk to one another, we persuade one another. You win the confidence of the other. And what I'm trying to say is this: the public service delivers on the mandate of the person who won the elections. This is how it goes. There is general elections coming next year. We will all do manifestos and promise what we want to do for Kenyans. Kenyans will say this is better than this. The one they pick must be delivered on by the person who wins. The machinery you use to deliver on the promises you made is the government machinery.
Thank you,
the public
Honorable Kioni. Now we come to tonight's topic, that is IMF. You remember in the year 1990s, I know John was not born by then. Maybe Edgar was still a toddler somewhere. Myself,
it's likely the other way around.
Somewhere.
It's likely the other way around.
I wish Honorable Kioni was there by then.
We took care of the country until we produce this
like that. Yeah. Now we go for a quick commercial break. As we come back, we'll be looking into the IMF. And we'll begin by looking whether did the IMF and also the World Bank, did they ever leave Kenya? What is its implications to the Kenya's economy and also the future? And how did we reach here for the second time or more than once? Keep it on CAC TV.
Experience Christian television like never before.
What are we called to do to transform the world, to make it more Christ-like, and ultimately to Christianize?
We are Christian professionals placed by God in our different spheres.
CAC TV brings you news.
Ulimwengu unabadilika kwa kasi na kila dakika ya siku kuna jambo unalopaswa kujua.
Economic.
Ni mmoja tu wa wanabiashara ambao tumezungumza nao mtazamaji.
Health.
The egg from Kienyeji chicken is very good and people know that.
Be rest assured that health is wealth.
Faith, as well as national issues programs to nourish your heart, mind and soul.
We can bring the change that we desire in our country.
We look into political and governance matters and current affairs matters with a third eye.
We are called to multiply disciples. So there has to be disciple makers, and there has to be people that are willing to be those disciples.
CAC TV brings it all to you.
God bless you.
Are you looking to grow a business? CAC TV offers you a variety of advertising opportunities to suit your budget. Advertise with us today and reach your potential customers countrywide. For more information, email us on sales@cactv.org or call 0794 588 054.
Family is God's greatest masterpiece.
And I do not know why the Bible says that a woman will be divorced for immorality, but it is silent on whether the man should be divorced for immorality.
You don't choose your family. They are a gift to you. But what are the challenges facing our families today?
This child can be sexually molested within marriage.
So anytime he comes home at 2 a.m., just go to your knees. Now, you lose your husband, you're not going to gain him.
Many of them have gotten messed up because you want to meet your needs.
Here on Transforming Families, we delve into matters that are difficult.
What do children think when they see that mom has 2 other lovers?
Viewed as hard and confusing in marriages and families.
There's a time you used to be in, huyo ni bibi ya DC. And people will not touch bibi ya DC. Huyo ni bibi ya chief. Huyo ni mke wa mwalimu.
Don't miss Transforming Families, Saturdays at 8 p.m. only on CAC TV.
Welcome back and many thanks for tuning into Powerbrief on CAC TV as we look into some of the matters that affect you, especially on politics, governance and economy. Honorable Jeremiah Kioni, Edgar Kosgei and Mr. John Kamau are taking us through this discussion as we try to unearth some of the issues that are giving people sleepless nights maybe to understand. When they talk of Bretton Woods, what are these? When they talk of IMF, what is it? And also the World Bank and its implications to the Kenya's economy. Gentlemen, before we went for the commercial break, there is something we had introduced about the IMF. And a bit of history we remember during the Moi regime, that is in the year 1980s to 1990s. Things went south on the Kenyan economy. And the IMF, in conjunction with the World Bank, had to step in and they had to give a raft of measures which to a deeper extent had to change the way businesses were being conducted in Kenya on matters policy implementation and policy formulation. When President Kibaki took over, at some point he said, enough of this, we no longer need the IMF, we no longer need the World Bank to chape it in this design. But there are those people who hold the opinion that the IMF and the World Bank never left Kenya. We are glad we have someone who is close to the executive and also the National Assembly. Did the IMF ever leave Kenya and also the World Bank when Kibaki, the former president, said we have to do away with them?
And it will never leave Kenya. And the World Bank will never leave Kenya. I think one of the things that we need to understand is IMF is really made up of 190 member countries. And with 182 of them being regular payers of subscriptions. Meaning that IMF is like the CBOs, you know, the merry-go-rounds that we find in the Kijiji back home, where members contribute money on a regular basis, and at a given point they go back and borrow and you develop yourself. This is the same way IMF has been constituted. It is made up of those 190 members. We are told 182 of them are the regular contributors. And from time to time, as a member of IMF, you may want to go back and borrow. And I think it is also good to understand why is it that Kenya, the countries came together to constitute IMF. One of the very many organs that are under the UN. You know, before you get to understand IMF, you also always think of an animal that is there, ready to come and swallow Kenya, ready to come and auction Kenya, ready, you know, and that is how we have been socialized or made to understand. But when you try and understand, look at the history of this institution, you'll actually realize that that's one of the institutions that we should be proud of. Because we are members of the IMF, we contribute to the kitty that is there, and we go to borrow money from time to time. We have agreed on the objective of IMF, and one of them is to ensure that we can trade across nations. there is financial stability. Without financial stability in the country, then the economy collapses. Again, without financial instability, without financial stability, not instability, without financial stability in the globe, the economies will collapse. And this almost happened 2008. It was what had happened 1945 and such things. So it is good to know that they help to ensure that like now we have the COVID pandemic that has hit all the countries of the world. And where do we go back? Where do we fall back to? One of the institutions that we fall back to is IMF. We go back and say, we didn't do enough biashara this year. We need budgetary support, and they will give it to us. They have given to many other countries, including those in Europe. But and I think it is also important to know that one of the other things is to ensure that there is sustainable development growth. They will come and help countries that may be lacking in terms with the economic experts on what you need to do for your economy to do better. And it is those kind of advices, when those advices are being given, that you as a country need to be careful. When those advices were brought when we were under the Kanu regime, they were brought and we were not careful, we didn't check. We allowed other things to play out. And we ended up with laying off people. Those structural adjustment programs were really unnecessary for this country. And that is what Kibaki came and said, this cannot work. I do not want them. I want to run my economy. And that is when you are clear in what you are doing, IMF will come and support you. And they will come to help you reduce poverty, create employment, and all those kind of things. Almost a similar objective that are with the World Bank. So IMF never left Kenya.
Thank you.
And IMF cannot leave Kenya because we are members of that body. And it is good to be members of a cooperative because it's from the cooperative that you get money and you negotiate the terms from that. Let me close by this, which was said by Mheshimiwa ya kesho. Na anafanya bidii na bidii yake hapana baya.
Asante mzee.
But let me say this.
I'm told kesho may not come back.
Our kesho is certain.
Yes.
He talked about the issues of sanitizing corruption. And he of course accused those of us in BBI of sanitizing corruption. Let me just allow him, and I encourage him to read the BBI. It will not take more than an hour, given what I have. My assessment of you, your intellect is very high. And one of the things about BBI is that corruption cases must be concluded in 2 years if we pass the BBI. So that if you are accused of having stolen our money, you are not going to be in court forever. Within 2 years, you must be jailed, and we need the money back. Of course, those are the laws that already exist. The other thing that it says is that if you have these allegations of corruption, you cannot run for any office. So those of us that are supporting BBI are the ones who are really unhappy with the level of stealing of Kenya's public resources. And IMF is looked at badly when we borrow from them, and then instead of using the money for what it is that we said we will, it is diverted through other channels. So we actually blame IMF, while in essence we should be blaming our own systems.
This brings us somewhere
who steal that which is not meant for them.
Mr. Kamau, part of the arguments that the Treasury, that is the Ministry of Finance in Kenya, trying to say is that some of this money, they want to use it actually to bail out some of the parastatals that are not doing well. And Honorable Kioni and Mr. Kosgei remember that part of the recommendations and also advice from the IMF is that some of these parastatals that are not doing well, do away with them or merge. 26 billion Kenya shillings has been committed to go and help KQ come back to life. And if my history is not misleading me, a number of times we've been saying KQ. Is it time to do away with this KQ and other parastatals, or we buy Honorable Kioni's idea that some of these recommendations from IMF and World Bank are not correct?
I think to start with, I'll say, and IMF is when, as we say, yes, it's a merry-go-round that we've been contributing on. So whenever we want to take a loan in times of need, it shouldn't be a mistake. But the issue comes in how we use those funds. And in most cases, you'll say IMF is end of last resort. This is when you have a patient who've not been taking care of the guidelines, the health guidelines, and he ends up in ICU. So IMF are the ones who now inject you with bitter medicine, because we have loans from the East that come with commercial interest without any restrictions. IMF comes with gives you commercials, and also they take step to step to undertake the situation in your country, and then they see how well will you be able to repay the loans. But the loans from China and other institutions, probably they won't check whether you'll be in a position to repay back the loans. So I would say for most of the parastatals, especially in Kenya, none of them, even the one that we thought, Kenya Power, that could make profit, isn't making profit, whereas all of us, we are using power. So for Kenya Airways, I think it's the best time that we've privatized Kenya Airways. Let's get people who have knowledge to run that airline. Yes, it's a pride of Africa, it's a pride of Kenya. I've gone to Uganda, and you can see the kind of airport they have and the kind of planes, but our planes are better off. The Kenya Airways planes are better off. It's our pride, and in most cases you might end up going deeper into your pocket to still take that pride. But I feel we should live within our means, and it's high time we privatize Kenya Airways. Instead of pumping money, every budget here we pump money to Kenya Airways. I don't think it's economical.
So it's compared like unapanda mmea kila mwaka, but you're not reaping anything.
Yes.
Now, Mr. Edgar.
Yes.
Even engineers studies history, because they're told this camera was invented by a particular engineer in the year 17 something and all that. Now, history guides a generation to understand where they've been and where they're headed to. Let's look at how the Nyai regime, that's the Moi regime, was able to react to the circumstances then on this issue of the economy when they were told do this. Because I remember like IMF was coming telling the president, kwa hii parastatal, sack Mr. Kamau. There is a good academician here called Omuse Sijipigi Debe. That was part of it. Another one, some of those things led to thousands of jobs getting lost. People became destitute, and also ilikuwa nasema Honorable Jeremiah Kioni alikuwa ameanza kujenga primary school or a secondary school in Darago, anasema hii ikwame hapa hivi kwa roof. All those things happened in those years, and the cries were all over. Right now we are here where we are. Do we go back to what happened then, or we have a new approach before we come to hear what is happening in the National Assembly?
True. What you have mentioned is called structural adjustment.
SAPS.
Yes, where you are given a condition to a loan. Now, the United Nations was formed after the 1945 when concessions, people came together and they were like, let us have peace in the world. Then the world had to be rebuilt, especially the third world. The third world. In fact, they started with the South America. So they were like, we need to help it. So the bodies that were coming in to help these nations were the IMF and the World Bank. Now, coming to that, but they were coming with conditions. One of the conditions that we have been seeing around us is the bottom-up way of running an economy, where you fund the poor, the Wilbaronomics, where you fund the poor with the hope that it will go up. Another one is a kind of economy called trickle down. And this is from IMF itself. It's called trickle down, where you fund the projects on top and you let it trickle down. You hope that it will reach the poor. Another structural adjustment is defund the social institutions, like the health sector, like the schools. When you are paying money to schools, then you need to stop paying money to schools so that you can be given money. Another one is that since the third world countries have not been doing well in industrialization, why not fund agriculture? Because that is their land anyway. Fund agriculture, but you can start with large scale agriculture. Then after that, they come with another one. No, don't fund large scale, fund small scale. Let me tell you, Omuse, the structural adjustments that were done in 1980 to 1985 to 90s did not work. Did not work at all. That's why when a condition, have you seen the conditions that the IMF has given? It was in the dailies, the Jana Majuzi. They are saying we need cuts in expenditure. Where are we going to cut expenditure? Are we going to send people home? Are we going to have unemployment going in the highest numbers? The structural adjustments that have been proposed before have never worked. But I have a few solutions to the country. One of them is that we can have a devaluation of our currency so that we can avoid a lot of imports. What is killing us as a country is too much imports. And another thing is that we are spending beyond our taxes. We are spending beyond our taxes. That is something else, Omuse. We will not need the IMF to come and aid us and to give us conditions of how we are going to run our country. Because there are conditions. They are not going to ask us, what are you going to do with 246 billion that we are going to give you, Omuse. So whatever, where the government is right now, I think it does not qualify to get any other loan in the country, to get into the country. The IMF has to come in and the IMF has to give us money. So these raft of conditions are not good for our country, Mose. They are not good for our country.
Many thanks. Honorable Kioni, looking at what Edgar has brought out and also from Mr. Kamau, history has told us, according to him and also according to him, that then it didn't work. But here we have a situation where something has to be done, because already as a country, even before COVID, we had already begun going into a ditch economically. What are some of these few raft measures that you believe have to be put in place to ensure that even as this money that they have accorded as close to 200 and something billion is used in the right way?
Of course, one of the things, and it's crucial for us to say this, is that for us, you know, why is it that we go through a process of ensuring that you have the right people in office? It's because in Treasury, we must have our best in economics, in financial management, in matters that relate to the management of our country from a financial point of view. And I have no doubt in my mind that when you walk into Treasury and engage our officers there, you'll be amazed by how they understand what we are struggling with here. And I am not in any state of or any mind of fear that they are still managing our affairs well. If you allow Treasury, this National Bank, and even the Kenya Revenue Authority to manage their affairs without throwing in too much politics, they will be able to say, this is not the right thing to do, that is the right thing to do. They will be able to tell IMF, your recommendation for this country or prescription will not work. We were not able to tell them that back in the 80s and especially in the early 90s. Why? Because we already had mismanaged ourselves so much that we had nowhere else to go. As it is today, I can tell you confidently that, and I engaged the people in Treasury this morning, that we are not short of people who wants to give us money. In fact, when we raised the debt ceiling in our country, one of the reasons we did so is not for the government to borrow, though that debt ceiling they still can borrow, but it was to allow the government to less expensive loans and take in cheaper loans, because there were many people who are already available at Treasury who are ready to give us cheaper loans. And why would they want to give us cheaper loans? Because our risk levels are not high, and it is good to know that. Now, when you are dealing with, when you're saying IMF has come, I can assure you that they will not come to us under their terms.
So this time round
it will be on our terms.
Or
yeah, it's on our terms, and the things they may want us to do, we may not be able to do. Because, for example, yes, we have toyed around with the issue of merging parastatus. We have toyed around with the issues of even selling them off. But I can tell you, and again, I think it's always good to explain to Kenyans that the government is not in the business of making profits to take where, but is in the business of ensuring that Kenyans, the private sector, can make the profits so that they pay taxes. Theirs is to facilitate, is facilitative. And of course, there are some institutions like KQ and Kenya Pipeline, Kenya Power, including Kenya Pipeline, Kenya Power and Lighting Company, that we will have to manage their debts and help them come out of them. Because this is very important, Omuse. Kenya Pipeline Company, Kenya KPLC, the Kenya Power and Lighting Company. I mean, you will go back to your home area today and you'll find some people were connected last week. It's happening in my constituency on a regular basis. The connections that we are doing cannot pay back tomorrow. The infrastructural cost of giving power to some 10 people is so much such that the country must agree to invest long term, not short term. So we are putting in a lot of money to take power to very few people, because at the sometimes to come, 10, 15, 20 years maybe, there will be people who will start having activities there that will eventually generate some income. So Kenya Power and Lighting, being in the bracket, should not worry anybody. And in fact, as a country, we must agree to continue funding them, because if we didn't change what was their model before, and their model before that was that they can only give you power if you are it's economically viable, and you are also able to fund that. How many Kenyans would you have connected today? So this is one of the best things that have been done by this government, getting power to the people, because after that you get young people quickly engaging in some economic activities. Now again, that is KPLC. Look at KQ. Remove our flag from the air. What does it do to our local economy? Again, another thing that we look at, when they are doing well, what kind of money did we make from them? What kind of trade are they, global trade, are they able to facilitate when they are in the air? So these are some of the things that you look at, and that's the work of Treasury. And I think it is important to then say that IMF can also was put perhaps on the back seat when we had countries that were ready to give us money without conditions. And the issue was, you are telling us IMF and World Bank would then be used by the powers that be, the US, Britain, Europe, EU, to say, force these conditions of that country and tell them to run their country in this. This is the most democratic way of running it. But today, look at the US. Look at their form of democracy. Would you want us to run our country like they are doing in the US? Certainly not. Would you want us to run like they are doing in the UK? Certainly not. So we are not at the level where we needed somebody to come and dictate to us. Now it is a question of taking that which will be best for our people.
Thank you, Honorable Kioni. Before I go to the two gentlemen, there's something that you've just said. Yes, it tries to make a lot of sense, though to a particular percentage. I would have wished maybe from your end, don't you think it is time for Kenya Power, actually it's understood from what you've explained, offering these essential service to the people and also the time that is expected for it to have returns. But for this airline service, isn't it time for a thorough, honest and a serious investigation to be done to understand why is it that it keeps on always going to
every airline in the world today, and when I say every is 100%, all airlines in the world today are in the brackets. They are making losses because of the COVID. Airline is a very tricky business. Even the private sector moves in and out. Private individuals moves in and out. Some of the very good airlines that you see and you're happy to use, the Emirates, the Ethiopian Airlines, Turkish, and even the one for South Africa and many others, are actually subsidized by the governments. In this country, we haven't subsidized KQ to that level. They are not. We've not been running our KQ, but the others are actually national airlines, which are subsidized and they are kept. So because there is an issue of image, and also the economy that they allow to grow because of them being in there. So of course, there is a management of it that we need to pay attention to. We have a registered, we have a recommendation, an act of parliament that there is a report and an act of parliament, a bill that has been developed out of that report in parliament on how can we manage KQ going forward. And I want to tell you how you do it in 1 or 2 sentences. Get back KQ to a profit making. Once it is back to profit making, sell it. That's what we did. We will get money, and this is what Kibaki did 2003, 4, 5, maybe up to 2008. Those parastatals that have now gotten to the profit margin, fruit them into the public, get the money back, take another non-performing entity, improve it to a point where and you sell it again, come back, because you are helping the economy also to grow. You are creating employment for the young people and even others. So the fact that KQ is looking too much in the lead is actually the time for the government to take it up, manage it, run with it, make sure that you have now made your money, perhaps recouped the money you invest in, sell it to the public. But we should never lose our flag in the air. We should never lose that bigger picture that is coming from KQ, from Kenya Pipeline, Kenya Power and Lighting Company, and Kengen. Do you know now we have surplus energy in this country? If we now say Kenya Power and Lighting is making losses, Fungawa, why is it that we are generating so much power with Kengen? Where will it go? And electricity, you cannot store it in a mtungi. It is generated and you use it, and there is a cost in the generating. It's only fair that we allow Kenya Power fund them a little more, so that those who have not been connected with the electricity in the rural areas are connected. And I can tell you every connection comes with some revenue that will give us some tax that eventually helps all of us.
Many thanks. We are all in admission that as a country we are in a deep trouble when it comes to finances.
Other than me.
How we
Other than me.
I'm running away.
No, he should run away.
No, I'm not in agreement.
Yes.
We are not.
Also should. Now, our parting shots, gentlemen. At some point, the Senate increased the debt ceiling of this country to 9 trillion.
The National Assembly.
The National Assembly. And today I was just looking in the dailies. There is also another plan, which I guess maybe Honorable Kioni is in that plan of increasing it further to another level. That is one. Then 2, we have the World Bank and IMF thing coming on point. But the thing here, how did we reach there where everyone is trying to run away, including the Honorable Member of Parliament is not really trying to tell us how did we reach there to an extent that we're increasing the debt ceiling every day, and at the same time there is nothing that is being shot on the ground. So your parting shot to the stakeholders, to Kenyans at large, and to the leaders. What do we do to salvage ourselves from this mess?
I think I don't have an issue with borrowing. You will find people in the village thinking that probably because you're driving a good car and living a good life, you don't borrow money. Probably that car, you've also borrowed it, but you have a way of repaying it. I have no issue with borrowing because like in our situation, we don't borrow to buy people food or borrow so that we can clear the wage bill. we borrow for infrastructures, to build dams, to build roads, to increase the level of education, and so it's actually infrastructural and development borrowing. If it was borrowing for other things, then I'll say it's wrong. The issue is, and actually we don't have an issue with IMF. It's good that they have to come and follow back to see how you're using the loans and to make sure you're in a position that in few years you'll be able to pay the loan. And like in the situation that we are in right now, they've asked that we probably freeze employment to a point where we don't have to have permanent and pensionable. We have contractual agreements. So you get into a job, you paid for 5 years, you have a contract for that, and that's what you work on. Because also part of a bigger chunk of our money goes to pensions, so we don't have to do pensions. And instead of doing pensions, for example, teachers and other public service units should come up with a way of also contributing part of what they have to a fund that they probably, after they leave work, they can share. So I'll say borrowing is not wrong, but how now after borrowing we use the money is where we go wrong. The Kimorels and Arol and all have you. We've gotten the funds, but we've used them in a very wrong way. And so we can continue borrowing. We can increase the seeding. Probably you can see the kinds of roads we have, Thika Road and all have you. 10 years ago, if you go through the road, it was a mess. Right now, it's good. So if we are borrowing to grow infrastructure, then it's good. It's the right way. If we have to increase the ceiling to borrow more, then it's good. And make sure also we are able to raise taxes and use them very well. So I don't have an issue with borrowing, I'll say.
Go ahead, but
yes.
Accountability should take the center
yes.
stage. Many thanks. Mr. Edgar, in summary, also as we come to the end of our show tonight.
All right. One of my solution before was devaluing our currency, and another one was to live within our taxes. The last one that I want to mention is to have the right kind of personnel in the government to handle your billions of loans coming in. A research was done, and the kind of employees that we have in government, close to 30%, around 20% are graduates. And close to, I think, 24%, I don't really have the figures, but you see, when you have an education, the kind of analysis that you have is better. When you look at the figures and when you look at the numbers, the return on input, it is better. So when we have the right kind of employees, not even that also, our members of parliament, Akina Honorable Jeremiah Kioni, when we have the right kind of legislative council in place, then we are not going to lose ourselves into a ditch. Now, another part is the IMF officials usually come to Kenya and brush shoulders with the treasury officials. They don't know where Kibra is. They don't know where I live. And they don't know the kind of situation that is down there. So it is a disadvantage on our side. And you can imagine the kind of perks that they have, the amount of money that they are paid high there. They even forget that there is poverty. Another thing is the documents that have been used for negotiations, Cornelius, are secretive. Could you please go ask about the documents that are being used for the 246 billion and you'll be told you have no clearance. Kenyan cannot query those documents. Right now you're trying to query KQ through the Mheshimiwa and you're not getting answers. You see, if it was public, and it is not even public enough to be queried. And then the last one is that privatization of the Kenyan parastatals will kill this country. And we will have many unemployed people. He has talked about having contracts altered in another way. We can achieve economic stability with a human face without touching the people of the country.
Many thanks, Mr. Honorable Kioni, in a few seconds, because you're part of the policy makers and also the implementers, is there hope that we are not going to have a repeat of the SAPS outcome during the Moi regime, and we also assure Edgar, Mr. Kamau and our viewers that all is in control or things are not well. In short, in few seconds.
We are in control, and when we allow those who are knocking our doors to give us money, it is because we know we want to hear them, and they will give, we will take money that is going to be useful to us under conditions that are not going to hurt our people. I ask Edgar in particular to, when he is back to his political corner, to encourage those who may be found culpable to own up to the crimes, as opposed to crying wolf and saying that they are being persecuted politically. Without doubt, we must continue making sure that we have the best at Treasury and other financial institutions. Within our constitution, there is the issue of Face of Kenya and regional balancing. Some of these things that we gave ourselves 10 years ago are affirmative action. There is a sunset clause, or a time at which you say, we have now done enough of affirmative action, we need to rest that. Regional balancing and this Face of Kenya, without doubt, and we can give examples, has produced some some mediocre level of performance in some of these offices, and it is important that we make sure that we are not overplaying that hard. But having seen that, let me also say that our public service is one of the most professional in the world, celebrated and admired by many. And I think it is important that we know that. One of the things that is contained in the BBI, it's what the young men have articulately brought out. And in one of the neighboring statutes, the Public Finance Management Act that will come in Parliament, and I'm sure it's already in the works, is to say that the money that we are devolving going forward, you can only use 30% of it for recurrent. The other amount must be used for development, because and that addresses the issue that was raised by Bwana Kamau of the money we are using, why can't we get people on contract and the rest. It's really to ensure that we are not using all the money on the current in terms of employment, paying fees and the rest nayo mengine. But finally, let me now ask you a question. I know you've been asking us, but I want to ask a question which I will answer. You know, we were doing very well with exporting coffee and tea and the rest. Have we reduced the number of tea takers or coffee takers in the world, including Kenya, or they have increased? If they have increased, which is the case, it means that we should actually go back and find out what is it that killed our coffee, our tea, so that we can start exporting, because the takers have increased. If we are able to do that, we would have better levels of foreign exchange earnings, which was lost because of poor management of those institutions. One of the key areas addressed by the BBI.
Many things I'll be able to answer the question next week, though you've tried to answer it on your own. Composed as they are, devoted and determined, the three gentlemen tonight have taken their time to take us through what many people are not really understanding it at some moment. We appreciate your overwhelming responses on our social media platforms, and that's why Mr. Kipsang Araf Kichwen and also Mr. Philemon Samoe, your questions came. Then we have to frame it, and next week as we meet here, because Honorable Kioni is a resident analyst flanked by Mr. Edgar Kosgei, that will be our first business to respond to what you've asked us. We thank you for always keeping it here on Powerbrief show, and also your feedback, because it keeps us going. And just from the production team, tonight we'll not be having Joyce Meyer's series, but we shall have PCA Gateway Parish that will be airing a few minutes after this show. For me, Cornelius Omuse, the entire Powerbrief production team, I wish you a very good night, and let's meet next Thursday, God willing. Have a good night, and remember, Kenya is our country. We have to live and devote ourselves in making it the best country ever in the world. Many thanks.
Yeah, one country.